Hey Squishies, back again with another vlog. This is Dirty Pair, episode 12. Something about skin, I don't know. Dirty Pair titles are always hard to remember. Especially since this one had very little to do with the episode, which was about sewer monsters, basically. I'm kind of mixed on this one. On the one hand, it's basically got no jokes in it. It's pretty much just a series of descents into the sewers to find the monsters, and then they freeze them and ship them out. But another way of looking at it, it has exactly one joke, which spans the entire episode, and is actually a pretty good joke. But it never actually made me laugh. So the one joke is that these are literally Lovecraftian monsters. The place they come from is called Lovecraft. And the show just relentlessly takes the piss out of the concept of the Lovecraftian monster. Which is probably deserved. See, the thing about Lovecraft is there were basically two things that formed the root of his fiction. One was the idea that the universe is a cold, empty, meaningless place in which human existence has absolutely no importance whatsoever, which is true. And the other was staggering, jaw-dropping racism. He lived in the early 20th century, one of the most virulently racist periods of American history. And people of that time thought he took racism too far. They thought he was overboard racist. This was a guy who, approved of genocide. He thought that was a great idea. He thought that lynchings were, and this is an actual quote, ingenious as a way of getting around laws against murder that, in his eyes, apparently should not have applied to black people. Yeah. He was a piece of fucking work. He has all these stories where, at the end, the climax of the story, the moment of maximal horror, is when the narrator discovers some terrible truth about their ancestry. That their ancestors were evil cultists, or their ancestors were fish people, and that they've inherited something terrible within themselves as a result of this ancestry, which is pretty much all because his dad was an abusive alcoholic. But there's one that he co-wrote, and I can't remember the name of the person he co-wrote it with. But it's called Medusa's Coil, and it's very rarely reprinted. And the big ending twist is that the evil woman that, the guy brings back as his wife from his travels, which, that's a standard beginning for, folktale monsters about how terrible women are. Oh yeah, he was really misogynistic too. The terrible revelation, the reason that she's so evil and monstrous and has, killer hair, in the literal sense of killer, is that she's part black. Yeah, that's it. He was incredibly, horrifyingly racist, even by the standards of the 19 teens and 20s. That is the point here. Which is really the wrong direction to go. Because, like I said, the universe is a cold, empty, meaningless place where humans have absolutely no importance whatsoever, and it is therefore all the more important for us to huddle together for warmth. Shit that prevents that, that encourages us to mistreat or reject one another, or see one another as something other than human, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, religious bigotry, people who are bigoted against religions, capitalism, all that stuff that encourages people to treat each other as not people. That's just compounding the problem. Life is empty and awful enough as it is. We really got to stop making it worse for each other. That bit of cheeriness aside, Dirty Pair really has a lot of fun with this, because they take this idea of the Lovecraftian monster, which is at once like a symbol of the horrifying emptiness of the universe, and Lovecraft's fear of the other, which is what, ultimately for him, these were the same thing. That this was his racism and his fears of the greater universe. He was afraid of everything that was different. And they take that and they make it absurd. So there's this theory of humor that I think is probably, if not an explanation for all humor, at least a very strong explanation for a lot of humor, which is called the benign violation theory. The benign violation theory holds that something is funny when it does two things simultaneously. It violates our sense of what should happen in some way, and it does so while still appearing benign, non-harmful. So, surreal humor is very much based in this. Surreal humor involves stuff happening that doesn't make sense, that isn't what we would expect, but we know it's not dangerous or harmful, and so we find it funny. Now, this is really close to a lot of horror. The difference is that horror is malign violation. It's a violation that comes across as not at all harmful. It comes across as threatening. Stuff happens that shouldn't happen, and it scares us. So the line between horror and humor can be very thin, and that's where Dirty Pair is playing with it. They're saying that the other isn't scary. The other can be interesting, or it can be different, or it can be funny. We don't have to approach it with terror. And so you have literally Lovecraftian monsters, once again, that have been purchased by people as exotic pets. So there are people who love these things. There are people who look at a Lovecraftian monster and go, oh, that's cute. I want one of those. Which is awesome. I love that. Because, of course, that's true. That's real. People all the time have pets that are things that frighten other people, People have pet snakes, they have pet spiders, they have, pet bugs. You see, biologists that, work with snails or something like that. There's a picture I saw just a couple of days ago of a researcher cradling a snail the size of her forearm, the length of her forearm, in her arms. And to me, I was like, okay, that's disgusting. But she seemed perfectly happy, and that's, people vary. And so, of course, there would be people who would look at these slug monsters with teeth and tentacles and go, yes, I want one of these to take home. And I will love it forever. And of course, some of those would get bored with them and flush them down the toilet. That's the part that really makes the episode click, is they take the Lovecraft... Somebody has purchased a Lovecraftian monster as a pet and then flushed it down the toilet into the sewers where it grows enormous and monstrous. Like, you know, legends about, like, people doing that with alligators in New York and that kind of thing. This is great. You know, this is wonderful. This is how people who aren't H.P. Lovecraft and don't live their lives in constant terror of everything new and different would respond to, you know, a monstrous universe. Some of them will take it, you know, some of them will love it. Some of them will get bored of it. There's a bit in one of the Discworld Death books. I don't remember which one. I think it might be Reaper Man, but I'm not sure. But Terry Pratchett has Death comment on the fact that humans have somehow managed, in a universe of infinite variety and complexity and this vast unknown in which we find ourselves, in all of that, we have somehow managed to invent boredom. We can look at a world filled with strangeness and things that we could never in a million years come up with on our own and go meh. And so, of course, there are people who do. There are people who flush these things down the toilets. And then the last bit that really makes it is that they don't kill the monster. They freeze it so that it can be transported elsewhere. Taken to a zoo or a preserve or back out into the wilds of whatever planet in the Lovecraft galaxy it comes from. But Kay and Yuri's response to this Lovecraftian monster is not... I mean, they're grossed out by it, but that doesn't mean they want to kill it. They just want it away. They don't want to hurt it. They just want it safely where it belongs. Which is pretty much what you should do with an invasive species, you know, which is what this is, you know. Somebody brought an animal from an environment where it's probably got, you know, predators and limitations and all that stuff, brought it into an environment where nothing exists that can deal with it, humans included, and it takes over the sewers. You know, it's kudzu. So yeah, like, all of that was great, but all of that is not happening during the show. It's sitting there afterwards and thinking and going, oh yeah, that's actually really clever. During the show itself, it's like, okay, and now they're fighting the monster. Oh wait, no, there's more monsters. Now they're going back to fight more monsters. Oh, no, wait, now there's one really big monster. And I think while I prefer this to the episodes where there's only one joke that's told repeatedly and it's haha girls, I still feel like the show is struggling a little. Like, this is back to, like, the very clever concepts and premises that it was having, like, in episodes 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, whatever. But for the last 3 or 4 episodes, it's increasingly, like, struggled to find good premises to execute well. I think the last one I can remember was, that one planet they blew up. Like, the episodes just aren't sticking in my memory that well. And that's a problem because some of the early episodes were, had these standout scenes or concepts that really enlivened them, And there hasn't. This certainly doesn't have anything like that. It's a great concept, but it's not. I don't know that it's a great episode, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make. Still, it's hopeful. It's a hopeful sign for the future because at least they're playing around with interesting concepts again. And hopefully they'll continue doing that going forward and execute it a little bit better. Yeah. I think that's about it. Hope you all enjoyed that. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. If you want some more videos right away, you can hop over to my Patreon and see them there. Got other goodies there, blog posts, ability to commission videos. Feel free to check it out. Bye.